What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for May 10th, 2021. We have Invictus coming with 3.13.1 in the PTU. We have a monthly report to go through, pretty big scanning update from ISC and SCL, and then an epic month of May, possibly, with Tony Z's big quantum update coming at some point this month. Let's jump into it, guys. And as always, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take all the official Star Citizen news, pile it into one video, and throw my opinions in there as well. If you guys have not yet, I do live stream on twitch.tv, so go check it out. Twitch.tv/SaltEMike every day but Monday and Tuesday starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time. But without further ado, we have a lot to get through, so let's jump into the patch notes. We had 3.13.1B on the PTU, where security is going to be more aggressive based on the heat levels in the area. They also resolved some cockpit glass issues on the Hornet series, as well as all the Razors. I think there's probably a few more to get through. I know there was a lot of feedback on cockpit glass just being too damaged too quickly with the new damage updates. Bug fixes, the big one that I see here is that big inventories, like having a lot of med pens or something, can't cause issues on the server anymore, hopefully. And then moving on to 3.13.1c, we added the C2 and M2. I believe these were only given to content creators and Evocati members, but I'm not 100% sure if these were owners as well, because I happen to be all three of those things. I own the C2, I'm a content creator, and I'm an Evocati member, so I'm not sure why, which reasons why I have it on my account exactly. They also backtracked on the bounty hunter changes where you cannot quantum to the location, but they did make the range a little bit different, so this is probably a better option for just right now, but in the future they can improve on it, of course. Also, the weekend playtest happened. This was Invictus testing for this weekend. The Javelin Tour was there, the Bengal Carrier was there. If you want to see these things, the Star Citizen Reddit has a lot of screenshots and videos. I used Boo Zero's video in some of the Boo Zero's images in some of the clips here from Reddit, so thank you for those. I just work on the weekend, so I didn't get to experience it for myself. I also prefer to see big events like this on the live servers because that's when most of the kinks are worked out, but also, unfortunately, the performance isn't always as good. Kind of starting out with performance and in relation to the event, the monthly report is where we're going to move on to next. Starting out with AI. This is always a section that has a ton of things going on, but I only clip out a small part each month because we just don't see these advancements in the game and the experiences that we currently have in Star Citizen. But I do hear that the snippet that we pulled out is, sort of involved with the Javelin Tour, and that the guide worked out really well on the PTU. So I hope this is the same for live. Moving on to environment art, we'll touch in a lot more detail in the video update section of this video, but the teams have been at what they've been at for a while. Orison, hospitals, colonial outposts, so nothing new there. Ship art. We know about the tank being in the game because it's currently in the PTU and everyone's talking about it, but they're also giving some time to the Connie Taurus, which is a pretty anticipated ship. It's a ship that goes way back that people were really interested in because of the advantages it had over other cargo ships. Weapons art, still working at standalone tools that we saw a few weeks ago, and bespoke weapons for an upcoming event. So I think these are either the weapons on the bangle for Invictus or something related to that Nine Tails lockdown event that Tony Z hinted at earlier this year. Character features, improving our current system for dragging and dropping inventories and also inventories inside other inventories. They also worked on how we will leave a lootable body when we die. I'm so excited for this. Recovering your body after you die is a common experience in video games, so having that in this one is just only natural. And then looting other players and NPCs is a really big step to having Star Citizen feel more like a video game and less of a world that you experience, right? So I'm really looking forward to that. Gameplay features, player asset manager in building blocks is being worked on. I think this has been shifted on the roadmaps quite a bit, so I'm not sure where that falls on there. Leave a comment below and let me know. I should have looked up this before I started the recording, but I didn't think of it until right now. Cargo refactor. This is where they wrote the technical design document referred to as the TDD in this clip, because there's also the TDD, the Trade and Development Division in the game. Just based on the context clues, that doesn't really make sense. So I think its technical design document on the entire cargo refactor is being worked out, which is big, because that is when you can kill an NPC, loot their ship of cargo, kill a player, loot their ship. Same thing. It sort of brings more of those gamified events to Star Citizen that I'm really looking forward to. Vehicle features, capacitors. This is the smoking gun of the vehicle team to fix apparently everything wrong with the flight system and how fast we're flying and all those things. This should encourage, this is just the thruster capacitors, by the way. This should encourage meaningful decision making during combat. Afterburners will be powered by capacitors and will drain fast when used. So they should probably be used infrequently. We'll have to see how that works. They also worked on improving HUD for operator modes and capacitors. By the way, where are those HUDs that we saw, like the Aegis HUD that we saw quite a while ago in ISC? Haven't really heard much about it since, which is maybe they're going through all of the manufacturers. I don't know. Moving on to the live content team, 3.13 work that we know about, but then they focused on Comrade gameplay for missions to help expand PvP gameplay. Work on spawn closets related to that as well. But man, I was really on a crusade over the last 3 months about throwing PvP players a bone. They've basically been ignored for quite some time, and it seems like it's finally a priority, which is awesome. Moving on to video updates, starting out with Inside Star Citizen. They had a scanning featurette. We have to start out where we are at currently, though, before we can move on to what they plan on doing and where they're going in the future. So in case you weren't aware, this is where we're at now.
Radar is, in a sense, your passive detection. That is, I'm flying around, things pop up on my radar and I can see them. Then you have ping, where you have to physically hit a button, basically pulsates a ping out into the world, and I can see things much further out. Scanning is the layer where once you see an object, you can scan it and retrieve information on it.
Okay, so where we are is pretty basic. The UI is quite overbearing as well, and now let's see, we're going first with radar.
With the new radar, we've tweaked how things get detected, so it's no longer two spheres colliding. It's just, to put it simply, if your signature is overlapping with somebody, they're going to see you.
One thing we want to improve is to make sure that we get proper player feedback, so you know that if you're in a very high ambient signature area, like a gas cloud, you could be hidden, and therefore make better use of the spaces that we provide in the universe that we created.
Sean Tracy liked the idea of, if you have a bunch of capital ships and a couple frigates, that maybe you can't see some of those smaller ships. What happens if we had that moment where you could have some ships hide within the bigger ships? So when you're far away, you're like, okay, there's an Idris, maybe I could take it out. You get a little bit closer, you realize that there's a whole fleet. So it's going with that balance of how do we hide things and how do we show things so that we could get big, amazing moments and even stealth gameplay.
The first thing I thought about in this Idris example is that it needs to work that way with a ship like the Caterpillar, a big cargo ship. And well, after watching the clip more closely, the example on screen is a Caterpillar. So this works with larger ships in game, and I would assume this is coming in 3.14 because we see it in game functioning now. Next up is scanning.
So with scanning, we want to increase the granularity of the information you get from scanning. So pilot, the other players, or AI that are going to be on the ship, what type of armament it has, what it's carrying in its cargo.
Also, we want to expose more interesting information. We want to let you know that there's a wanted person on board. We want to let you know that maybe there's some volatile cargo on board. We want to let you know that there's something interesting relative to your specialization of the ship. It also unlocks more stuff for the designers to say, this type of scanner is going to be more for medical use. This type of scanner is going to be more for criminality or something like that.
This change appears to be all about the information that it provides. It's not just the name and the type of ship and some of the cargo contents. This clip showed all of the components on the ship. This allows you to make informed decisions. If you have shields that are not effective against, I don't know, ballistic weapons, then you might choose to not engage in the target. And so that can go into so many different decisions that can be made. So I really like this update. The only issue here is they have to decide and add more information to the game. So I'm not sure if this is coming in 3.14. It might come in 3.14 limited and then be improved in future patches. So we'll have to see as we get closer to 3.14 what that will entail. The last thing is ping and how that will change.
What we're doing with ping is, for the first time, we're going to actually allow you to not only get the blob information, which gives you the rough, direction and size of the entities that may be contained within the blob. So it gives you a rough area of where you might want to investigate. But if the signatures are high enough, then you can actually scan the contents of that blob, which is something we weren't able to do before.
You won't see a lot of these things happen all at the same time. It opens up the doors so that we could push things in through patches and through waves.
What we're looking for is a fun player experience for finding things.
First off, in the last two clips, they showed the new animations for ping, which is much less abrasive, and the blob as well, which I think looks really good. The big change here is the ability to be able to scan the contents of a blob. So there could be 3 ships in there, there could be multiple minables in there, but you can scan the contents of what's inside that blob, whether it's one thing or multiple things is what it sounds like. This does sound like it's likely in a future release. If it makes it in 3.14 though, that would be amazing. The next featurette is a sprint report. So they started out with hospital props, tables, trolleys, gurneys, things like that. A lot more hospital image updates. Most of the sprint report honestly was the visuals of hospitals. I know, there's not a lot there in terms of discussion points though. So they move on to gas cloud preview for the jump point to pyro. They're trying to get the shape that they had at SitCon, which I don't know, the gas cloud tech may have changed, something like that, where they can't get that shape anymore and they're not quite there, but it looks amazing in the images that we see. Ship to station docking, there was a lighting pass on it, but most of us see that in game right now, I would think. Refinery worker armor. I really want to see this in our hands in one day. I think that looks amazing. The new armor that we saw last week, more details on that are in Jump Point magazine. The Orison Hab platform is starting to come along, and the vistas are starting to as well. Orison Hab interiors. I had a moment of stupidity when watching this. They're a copy paste from New Babbage, right? With a little bit of changes, more wood, things like that. And I thought that was a negative. But the more I thought about it, it's like a time saver, and they added enough to make it feel different, and that's okay. This game has to be finished at some point, and I can't tell them to get things done and then hold them accountable for copying, pasting a hab. It's just silly. So moving on to Star Citizen Live. First off, huge praise for this setup. When ISC is something new like scanning, it really does make sense to have SCL be the follow-up, because it could create questions that we want answered based off the video that we watched. So the first clip comes from a question about scan data from our ships and if we'll be able to see that when we're in first-person shooter mode, but it gives us a detail on what to expect in 3.14.
The primary focus is for this upcoming patch will be for ships, because we're going to iterate on developing this tech, basically replace the old system with the new one, and then add on extra features throughout patches. So this tech will allow us to put it on to other things like players and on ships, but the current one will not be exposed to players until an up-and-coming patch.
This is the plan. Everything we saw in ISC, get it in ships, get feedback, make it better, and then expand it around to the rest of the game. So again, what we saw in ISC probably is in 3.14 for the most part, and major changes to the entire system are likely to come in the future sometime. The next part is about scanners. Will there be better ones than others? Right now, scanners all kind of work the same.
A lot of the work that we've done is to talk with designers on what information they would like to have across different ships, even on foot, and what type of upgrade paths you would want radars and scanners to have. And a lot of those type of things usually amounted to different type of signatures, the strengths at which you can see them at, even the strengths of how resistant they are to ambient, even the types. So we've unlocked a lot of information and a lot of ways to categorize information so that designers could make more stronger radar, more stronger ping, or more stronger scanners, or unlock specific information. We've also incorporated different ways that we could potentially unlock players to filter out that stuff, but it still depends on what the designer said that this particular radar can do, or this particular scanner can do.
This is cool, but keep in mind, these are the tech guys that made it possible. He's not the designer that makes scanners. That's the big theme of the show. These guys made things possible. They're showing the potential of the system, but not the actual implementation of it. So it doesn't really tell us what we will play with, just what's possible in theory. The next clip was probably a UI thing that we saw, but didn't know what it meant in the ISC clips. And during his talk, I'll label it what I think they're mentioning here.
With that depends, we also wanted to add some stuff onto the UI to kind of help you with that. So one of the things on there is what your signatures are emitting versus the ambient levels that are happening. So it kind of gives you an idea of how well seen you are versus what's happening in the environment.
The best way I describe it is like a thief visibility meter, thief or siphon filter. Maybe that's really old. Yeah, it's got a little visibility. So you've got that ambient level. So like a good example, and this is more for FPS because they have the dB signature, so like sound. But if you're in a room that has a generator running, it's super loud or whatever, that ambient sound is going to be like full bar. And as you run, your ambient's going to move up and down like this as it is, but it's probably staying below. So that means you're stealthed. You're not detectable easily anyways.
I don't know if this is planned for 3.14 or not because UI is so bogged down always. But letting us know what ambient is allows us to fiddle around with our own signatures and allow us to be stealth and know that we're stealth and we don't have to guess, right? And then there was a few other quickies and things that they mentioned that we're not going to clip out. You cannot filter scans in 3.14 at the moment, so I cannot filter out ships from minables, things like that, but they built the tech to allow it. But again, they're in discussions with design about how much they want to let us interact with, things like that. Long-range scanning is still planned with the ping mechanic, but it will cross server meshes and things like that, and just that's still the plan, but obviously it's not being implemented because server meshing is not. Moving on to other updates, we had a Spectrum update this week. Big feature is private groups, a May subscriber promotion, more of those bug-looking helmets that we talked about last week. There was a lore post from the Lightning Company. The sneak peek was the jump seats from the M2. There was a Gen 12 renderer post. A lot of simplified details here on how it will help free up performance on our clients big time, but again, not all at once. This will come gradually over time. And then this month in Star Citizen, at the very bottom, Tony Z's update was teased. The one that was teased a few months back is planned for this month. So will this be another epic month of May that wasn't so epic in 2020, or will it deliver above expectations in 2021? Let me know in the comments down below. But with that, guys, that's it for this week's Week in Review. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe if you have not yet, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.